This is Ruth Yesair. I'm interviewing Keith Walton on the 23rd day of August, 1984. Mr. Walton, when were you born?
When?
When were you born?
I was born in April 29th, 1903.
Uh-huh.
Georgetown, Warren Street, Georgetown.
In Warren Street. If you lived over in Warren Street, do you remember anything about a Byfield cheese factory? We're trying to track down information on a Byfield cheese factory that was around Wheelwright's Corner.
No.
Nothing,
No.
nothing at all. We're trying to track down some information. You were very instrumental in starting the Byfield Fire Department. Can you tell me when it was started? Who were the organizers?
Well, I would say...
Did you live in Byfield at that time?
Yes. I would say Frank Witham was the main organizer of the Byfield Fire Department because he was always... Well, he went to every fireman's, he went to every fire, and he knew all of Newburyport Fire Department and Erie 4, things like that. He was a real, I wouldn't say firebug, but, he was real interested in fires.
And he felt that Byfield needed its own protection. Yes. Up until then it had relied on, Erie 4?
Well, yes, they would come down. I think they had a hand tub. I think they didn't have any machines at that time, I don't think.
Can you tell me about the first organization of that fire department? Do you remember the date?
Well, it was sometime 1922. I wouldn't remember the date.
What was your first equipment like?
Well, I don't, we bought, I don't know, I don't think we had any equipment there. Oh, yes, we did too, I'm sorry. We used the Byfield Snuff Company. They had a packet car with the chemicals on it and things like that they had for their own use, and we could use that, I think, till we bought our own. We used to use that truck to go to fires with, even until we got our own. I remember going to Plum Island in that old packet truck.
Really?
To fires down at cottages down Plum Island.
Heavens, that's quite a distance. Old Town didn't have its own protection at that time.
Not at that time, no.
Do you remember any of the major fires in Byfield or in the area?
Well, I'd say...
How about the woolen mills? Do you remember that?
Woolen mills was a major fire.
Can you describe that fire, and how was it started? Do you have any idea?
Well, I don't know how it started, but it was a bad fire, and it was in the night, and it completely destroyed the woolen mills. It was...
How many firemen and how much equipment would you have used? Do you remember?
Well, I think that they called Newburyport and Georgetown, and they all came to that fire, but all we had was our own first truck that we bought at that time.
It was pretty much out of control when you arrived?
Yes, it was.
How would they have alarmed the fire company? By telephone, neighbors?
Well, I would imagine so, yes. There was a lot of houses near the mill there, and someone from that locality called the well, I know just where our headquarters was, there was nobody stood on, but Frankie Witham was always on call. I'm sure of that.
So they'd call his home?
I would think so.
When did the fire company acquire a place to hold the equipment?
I can't remember the dates for that, really.
Has it always been pretty much self-sustaining, or is the town support? Initially, did the town support it?
No. No, it was really a volunteer company, and I don't I think after a few years, after we organized and had the truck, I think they did furnish hose, a little $200, $300, or $400 for hose and things like that.
Good.
When we needed it.
Okay.
But outside of that, it was purely volunteer. We run dances and whist parties, and of course they had a fireman's muster once a year usually.
That fireman's parade was very important in the town.
I meant the fireman's, not a muster, I mean a
Carnival.
carnival.
Yes.
Fireman's carnival.
Yes.
And that was every year. Bill Sr. used to be the big overseer of that. He was a great worker for the fire company too. He was captain, I think, at that time.
Yes. Then most of the men would have worked locally so that they could respond to a fire.
Yes. Most, yes, I'd say they did.
Yes. I heard there were a lot of minstrel shows in Byfield put on by the local talent. Did you ever participate?
Well, not too much. I think I might have been in one or two, but I wasn't too much of a person to get into those things. I'd rather watch them.
Do you? Can you describe who were the stars? Some of the stars.
Well, Bill Sr. was one, and McKay down, and Harris Rogers probably, and well, let's see, who else? It's sad for me to remember names.
You were born in Georgetown. When did you move to Byfield?
I moved to Byfield when I was about 6 years old, 6 or 7. I went to my second grade of school in Byfield.
Where did you live in Byfield?
I lived on Chute Street.
On Chute Street. That's
It's right on the Georgetown line.
right on the Georgetown line. Do you remember that there was a Chute house? Somebody told us that the willows, weeping willows there came from England. No, you don't remember that. Do you remember what Byfield Center looked like when you were growing up? We were told that there was a brook behind the present post office and woods.
Yes.
Can you describe it to me?
Well, yes. We used to, there was a brook run through there, deep brook, about, I'd say 5 or 6 feet deep. And kind of wild. We used to have a path through that. Us kids always walked through there if we were, rather than go around the corner. If we was going from Billy Pearson's had a store right side of the fire company and almost partially where the fire company building is.
What was Billy? What did he sell?
Well, he's a grocery store.
General store.
General store, and then there was at one time, Bert Tarbox had a barber shop and a pool room upstairs over that store. And old Dr. Rogers had a room upstairs that he was
he was a medical doctor.
Yes, he was a medical doctor. I was the only medical doctor in Byfield.
So if you were ill, you'd go over there. He'd come to your house.
Yes, he would. He was a real old-time doctor. He'd call the houses, or you could go to his office there up over the.
Do you remember what the office looked like inside?
No, I can't really now. I don't know as I ever went to his or got in there. I might have
Whatever
seen
happened
him going
to
in
that
and out.
building? Whatever happened to that building?
I think that building burned.
Oh.
And I can't remember whether that just when that burned. I can't remember the dates. I can remember the time. Because I lived over there.
Yes.
Because I lived right close to there, within 200-300 yards of that store. Yeah.
Let's pretend that we're going from down Central Street from Chute Road, and can describe the town and the various buildings in it and what it looked like when it was unpaved and there was the railroad through there and the streetcars through there. Can you visually describe from the school walking towards the center?
Well,
The roads were unpaved.
the roads weren't paved, no, but I can't remember just when they built the monument there, but I think the monument was built after I started school.
Uh-huh.
And there was we called it the Junior Order Hall.
Right.
And
Right. Do you remember
eventually called it the Town Hall.
Do you remember the band they had?
Yes, I can remember they had a band there, but I don't know I can't remember who was in it or anything, but I do remember a band.
Yes. It was all wooded. Lots of woods and trees.
Well, the only wooded place I remember was right across from the fire station. There was that brook that ran through there, and that was all woods from there right back to...
How it has changed. You wouldn't believe there was a brook there. Yeah. We were told there were beautiful wildflowers in there.
We jump across that brook, and sometimes slip back in and get it.
Yes.
But things like that, in the spring it was quite a lot of water in it.
So we've got to the Junior Order Mechanics Hall, which is presently the Town Hall. What was on the other side of it?
Well, until the fire station was built, there was nothing.
Then where was this pool hall?
Well, that was a little further down towards the...
corner? The intersection?
It was towards the little... there was a church there. What is it?
Oh, the Gospel Hall.
Gospel Hall.
Yes. Was that there then?
Yes, that was there back as long as I can remember.
I see. Then where are we?
Well, then
were they painted
there was
white?
Billy Pearson's store between that and the fire station. See, although I think the fire station might have been built after Billy Pearson's store burned.
I see. Were they painted white? I'm trying to get a picture in my...
I think I would almost say was white, yes.
I'm trying to get a picture in my head of what the town looked like.
The hall, as far as I can remember, Junior Hall, was always a yellow.
Uh-huh.
Might have been some other color, but I'm not sure about that. We used to go over there from school. I remember Memorial Days and practice in that hall because they used to put on kind of a show every year, some kind of a church, not church show, but a school show. Everybody had their singing or something like that.
We were told that Memorial Day was bigger than the 4th of July. It was the big celebration.
It was a big celebration that day. Charles O'Bailey would always get up and make a speech. I can remember that.
What did he look like?
Who?
Charles Bailey.
Well, he was a tall man with just a mustache, I think, over his mouth, and he was I think he was something, a state senator or something at that time. So.
And we were told that would they walk from the Byfield Parish Church to the center, or the center of town to the Byfield Parish Church?
Well,
said there was a parade.
Oh, the parade. I would think that the band from the juniors used to play, I think, over to the South Byfield Cemetery. And whether they paraded back over to Byfield or not, I can't remember. But I think they did, but I'm not sure of that.
Do you remember any of the old veterans that might have been alive at that time?
I can't recall the names now, really, honestly.
Well, that's interesting. Then now we're at the Mechanics Hall, and then next was the Gospel Hall. The next.
No, Mechanics. There was that Pearson's store, that grocery store,
okay.
and that was there first. But after that burned, I think was when the fire. I think the fire department, the house was built after that burned.
Then the railroad station.
Yes.
Who was the not the conductor, what you call him, the
Station master.
station master.
I don't remember his name.
Did you take the train to?
Oh yes, they used to take the trains to Newburyport, Georgetown.
Do you remember how much it cost?
I don't know. No, it seems to me probably you go to Newburyport for 20 cents or something like that.
Yeah. Now, then across from the railroad station there was another little general store, I was told.
Yes, that was Rod Hill's store. Well, it's where the post office is now, I think. When I remember, Rod Hill had a store there.
What did he
sold
sell?
Meat and some groceries too. I think.
Then going north on Main Street towards Georgetown, right there, Harris Rogers had a store.
Yes. That was next to what used to be the post office. The post office building was there.
Who was the postmaster?
I think I don't know. I can't remember. It seems to me Fred Pearson was the postmaster one time, but I'm not sure of that.
Do you remember what Harris Rogers' store looked like inside?
Oh yes, I don't know as I can describe it. It was just the front door, and you went in. There was a candy counter, the first to the right, and then I guess he had groceries over most of the rest of it.
And we were told the Grange Hall was up there too.
Yes, the Grange Hall was, I think that was over the post office.
Was Grange very influential in town, very active?
At that time it was quite. I didn't belong to it, but they used to have dances there once in a while, little dances.
Do you remember the watering trough below Frankie Witham's, where they used to water their horses after going to the blacksmith shop?
No, I can't.
You don't. Do you remember the blacksmith shop?
Oh yes, I remember the blacksmith shop well. Used to take horses there to be, my father's horses down there to be shod. I remember that.
Yes. Who was the blacksmith?
Well, that's another thing. I can't remember his name now.
Yes, yes. Who were your teachers at the Byfield School?
Well, I can remember name some of them. Of course, Miss Torrey was one of the main.
What did Miss Torrey look like?
Well, she was a. I don't know.
Was she tall or?
Well, quite tall and thin. She
Yes.
wasn't very stocky. She was a wiry, I'd say, person. Took good care of herself. I remember she always ate bran muffins, I think, to keep. Said they were healthy. And,
Yes. We've heard that she was a real influence in Byfield, a real influence.
I think that she was the best teacher that I ever went to.
That's.
Although she was strict, she'd come along and get hold of your cheek and pinch it if you didn't. I learned the multiplication tables and all the weights and measures and everything like that, and I can name them off today, really.
Because of
Yeah,
her.
because of her. And I know that she was that strict that we had to learn those. And I've had some of my children, you ask them how much 7 to me is, they could tell you. I could tell you any table there was, you know, and number table.
Because she was a disciplinarian.
Because she made us learn them.
Did you learn all the English poems by heart?
Yes, I could pronounce all those. Barbara Frici and all those. We had to learn them all, and we had to say them. If we didn't, we just had to scare school sometimes, so we didn't know them.
Yes.
And it was, at the time, I probably didn't think, you know, that she was the best teacher in the world, but after I grew up, I knew she was.
Yes.
Because I saw my children grow up, and a lot of them, they wouldn't know those things at all, you know. You could ask them how much, they'd say, Dad, how much is 7 times 8, or how much 6 times 4? They wouldn't know.
That's right.
I had them in my head, and they're still there.
Yes, yes. She taught 3rd and 4th grade.
3rd and 4th grade, yes.
Do you remember, there were 4 rooms in that school, so there were 2 classes to a room.
2 grades in a room, yes.
Yes.
1st and 2nd, 3rd and 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th.
Do you remember any of the other teachers?
Well, some of them. There was, I remember the principals, Miss Hamlin was the principal, and Mr. Phillips, I don't know his first name, but Mr. Phillips was a principal, and there was Miss Fielding, and I don't seem to remember. I may think of them later on, but it's offhand, I can't name them right now.
Do you remember the town meetings that were held down in the town hall on Middle Road?
Yes.
What were they like?
Well, everybody, you know, in town, the old townhouse there, I used to, after I grew up, I used to go down there and, you know, and listen to them. It was quite a thing to hear all Arthur Moody and...
Can you describe what Arthur Moody looked like?
Arthur Moody was a great big rugged man and bushy white hair, I guess. And
we were told there were great orators at that
yes.
time. Who were some of the characters?
Well, of course, Charles O'Bailey was a great orator, and of course he was pretty interested in town affairs and everything too. So he was usually there, and Arthur Moody. And
they were all-day affairs.
Yes, he'd go there early in the morning, and 7, 8, and 9 o'clock, and they'd go all day. Sometime into almost into the evening. I guess they didn't go in the evening because they didn't have lights there.
What did the building look like inside?
Well, just, I guess it was just one door in the center, you know. You went in and there was all kinds of chairs and everything.
What did you do for lunch if it was all day?
Well, I don't know where we took lunch. I'm not sure. I don't know as I'd stay all day, but I used to go, I know, when I grew up.
How was it heated?
I think it's just a big stove. An old depot stove or something like that. I can't remember just the shape of it now.
Remember Parker River or Plum Island Pavilion?
Yes, I remember that. That burned, of course. And
there were dances down there.
yeah.
Ever go to any of them?
Well, yes, I did, but I didn't do much dancing until after I was married. For some, I was a little bit fills up as I went on the floor while everybody was watching me, you know. So I got a little bashful about going dancing.
Yes.
But after I got used to it, it didn't bother me any.
Yes. Do you ever go inside the woolen mills?
Oh, I worked in there for a little while.
What was it like inside?
Well,
These were big buildings, weren't they?
Yes, it was a 2 or 3 story building, I think, and I didn't get up on the other stories much because I worked on the first floor. Just a short time I worked there.
What did you do
one
there?
Summer. Well, I think I worked down on the first floor in the press room, what they call it. The sheets come out and went into these presses, and I
Sheets of what?
pressing felt.
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 All right.
It was made out of all kinds of hair, I guess, but they pressed it into sheets of felt, about 3-foot square sheets.
Was the felt used for a particular purpose, or was it?
I'm not sure just what it was used for.
How was it powered? Do you know? Do you remember any of the managers that you had to deal with?
Well, I can't think of the manager's name. That I've thought about it time again, but I couldn't tell you the name now. He lived right on the White House, right on the corner, where what is Orchard Street,
Yes.
around there. There was a big house right on the corner.
Right, and
Manager lived there.
do you remember Fatherland Farms when it was looking really lovely?
Yes, I can remember that.
Tell me about it. Can you describe it to me?
Well, that was a big horse farm for Frank Burke's. Run a shoe factory, I think, in Rowley, and he had a place in Rowley, and I guess originally that was all Frank Burke's home, that farm there. And then he moved to Rowley, and young Frank Burke took it over, and he and his family lived there when I knew about it the most.
There were Forbes there.
Forbes. There was another house that was right on the corner there before you get to the bridge going down Central Street. There was seems to me the name was Holland, but I'm not sure.
Uh-huh. Do you remember where they lived?
Well, they'd lived there at that time.
I see. Do you remember Fatherland Farms when they had greenhouses there?
Well, I do. I think, yes. I think they had a greenhouse below the house, and they used to raise flowers and things like that.
Uh-huh. How about the car barns in Byfield?
Well, I lived right side of that, so I do know. We used to hang out over there as kids a lot.
What happened to it?
My father was the starter in that car barn there.
Well, tell me about what he did.
Well, he was the starter, worked in the office, and started all the cars out on the different runs,
How many cars would they have had?
Well, because there was one side of the barn they stored the open cars in the winter and snow plows and things like that. And the main side had 3 tracks in it, I think, and they used to run the cars in there nights, when they come in at 11 o'clock, and they'd go out probably at 6 o'clock in the morning, start the runs, one to Havel and one to Newburyport, and one to Ipswich, I think. It went as far as Ipswich, and then that met another car that came from Beverly the other way or something like that.
Heavens, whatever happened to that machinery in that building?
Well, I don't know just what day. I guess they took it all when they closed the barn. They must have took what was usable to Havel, and there was another big car barn in Havel. And Byfield had a powerhouse right up
On Forest Street, right?
Yeah, on Forest, which is off Forest Street, on Water Street, I think they call that.
Can you describe that powerhouse to me?
Oh yes, that was a big brick building, and it was run by steam, 2 big steam boilers, and they run a big generators in the room there that made the power for all the Byfield to Georgetown, to Haverhill, and Newburyport, all the cars that run out of there, and Rowley and Ipswich. I think at one time there was a car run from Newburyport to Parker River, but I think that was another line. I'm not sure. I think that was a line that met the Byfield cars in Market Square.
What did the cars look like? Were they open or closed?
Well, they were closed in the winter time, and they were reversed ends, you know. They'd run them into Newburyport, and then they'd reverse and take their controls back out the other end, go the other way.
Who were some of the motormen?
Well, my father was a motorman, and Bill Sr. was a motorman, and Bill Pearson was a motorman, I think, and Arthur Pearson was a motorman.
Why do you suppose they vanished? They didn't last very long.
No.
All that investment, and they didn't last long.
It don't seem to me that, I don't know just when they started, but I do know they quit while I was in the Navy, I think. I joined the Navy when I was about 17 years old and spent 2 years in the Navy. So.
Where were you stationed?
Well, I went aboard ship, right aboard ship. It was right after World War I, and the Navy was short of men, so we didn't even we enlisted in Newburyport. That was what, I guess, got us to go, because we enlisted on the battleship that was going to take 6 months cruise around the world.
Uh-huh. Did you get around the world?
No. We got on that ship, but we were out towing targets for battle practice down the South Atlantic there, and got some hawser ropes caught around the propellers, so we had to go into the Navy Yard, and there was some other ship.
Which Navy Yard did you go into?
Well, we went into Brooklyn, I think, at that time. Brooklyn Navy Yard, New York. And Boston Navy Yard was a home port, but I was only in 2 years, because we could enlist for 2 years, and on account of being shot, you know, they wanted to get 2-year enlistments.
Yes.
But I never regretted it too much, because I had quite an experience that I always remembered, you know, about on that Navy.
Well, you were
Went
fortunate.
through the canal and up the west coast, and
Did you?
down across the equator, and around the tip of South America, and all the islands and the Virgin
Remember
Islands.
any particular memorable experience on the boat?
Well, no, nothing particular that I know of. There's a lot of experiences I had that I remember, but I don't know.
When you were growing up in Byfield, you could get almost everything delivered, couldn't you? There was a fish man.
Yes, there was a fish man, there was a banana man, a fruit man. And
what was the fish man's name?
I can't tell.
Was it a horse-drawn cart?
Horse-drawn cart, yes.
Uh-huh. He'd come once a week? Or
once a week.
Fresh fish?
Fresh fish.
And
was supposed to be fresh. I'm not sure, but whether he came once or twice a week. And I can remember buying haddock for 8 cents a pound or something like that.
And you said there was a banana man.
And a banana man, I can remember when I living at home, my father we had a big family, and we had a farm in Rowley, Danielsville, and we used to go back and forth. We had cows and horses there, and of course there was always, my father would take in any of the cousins who were out of work, you know, he'd take them in and put them to work, always on the farm or the marshes or somewhere like that.
Did you do salt marsh haying? Did you do salt marsh haying?
Yes, quite a bit of salt haying. And
where would you have
Well, Father owned
that?
some marshes in Rowley, down the Rowley marshes. And that was where we went haying.
Can you describe the process to me?
Well, everything was done with horses then, of course. We had to put horseshoes, marsh shoes on the horses' feet.
Did they object to it?
Well, not too much, no. The horses got used to it. They'd climb around the marshes. And I can remember the greenheads and horseflies were the worst thing that we had to put up with during marshing season. I guess we got toughened to it anyway, somehow. So
Can you describe the process to me?
well, that's the only thing, we didn't haul hay off the marshes. When we cut the hay, my father would go down and mow the hay. Some of the marshes we mowed by hand and scythe. I learned to mow with a scythe. And I had my uncle work for my father, and we always had somebody else. And we'd 4 or 5 of us go along with a scythe, and we'd cut between the 4 of us, we'd cut a strip as wide as this room, 3 or 4 feet around.
Then you would put it in a saddle?
And you build a because there were staddles on the marsh.
Yeah.
We'd build the stacks on that saddle, and they'd stay there till winter time when my father could get on there with ice, on the ice and haul it off in the winter time. They were pretty close 10 feet tall. Yes, we built them 9 to 10 feet tall.
They were very carefully shaped.
Always carried my father would have a ladder on, one of the wagons. And of course, that's the only way you get down is to put a ladder against them and slide down on the ladder, get down on the ladder.
Oh.
After you got one built, and I learned to build salt hay stacks, we call them.
They were used for winter fodder?
Yep. We didn't, as milk, we didn't like to feed salt hay to cows, but he always did a little bit. I guess it was good for them. And but it would make the milk taste a little salty.
Oh.
Never used to like that too. I was drinking milk, so I was glad when the salt hay was gone, I guess.
Do you remember any of the big activities in Byfield? Any real happy occasions or tragedies or?
Well, of course, the big occasions, I say, was Memorial Day, and we had little parades and something like that, and we used to, of course, my grandmother belonged to that little Child's Eye church there, so we were I went there to dinner. They'd put on a big dinner Memorial Day and feed everybody that come in, I guess.
Ah.
And us kids used to love to go down there because they had all kinds of pies and cakes.
Did your grandmother ever tell you about how it was in the area when she was growing up? Any family stories?
Now, of course, they came from, my grandmother lived in Danielsville. We had farmed over there. They had
And can you tell me precisely where that is?
Well, it's off what is Havel Street, I guess, goes from where the Egg-Long Diner is. I think that's Havel Street.
Yes.
133, is it?
Yes.
Yeah, 133. But that up there about a mile and a half, there's a road goes down by what used to be Daniels' shop. And my grandmother owned a farm right on that road. And then there was another farm just before you got to that road coming up Havel Street. There was a lane went down, and there was another farm. My grandmother and grandfather owned those 2 farms.
How did she get from there to the Byfield Church?
Well, she didn't go to that church at that time, I don't think. But when she got to Byfield, I think she joined that church. And,
Where did she live in Byfield?
well, my father built her a little house right out on our front land on Chute Street. A 4-room, kind of a cottage house. and she was my grandmother and grandfather. My grandfather died soon after we moved to Byfield, Grandfather Walton, and I don't seem to remember too much in particular. So I was only about 5 years old, I guess, and I don't seem to remember too much about that. Only I do remember his funeral, but I don't remember him too much. I guess you sent me some pictures here, didn't you?
Yes.
Yes. I have a big picture of him, one of those, the original, I think.
Oh, wonderful.
I found that, and it looks just like those. Of course, those were. But I did say, my brother had got one, and I told him that you'd send me two, and he'd like one of them, so.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. Do you think Byfield has changed very much since you were growing up?
Well, of course, I know it's changed now a lot. For they've built a lot of homes over there. Of course, there were very, very few homes being built when I lived there. I don't believe there was hardly a town, there was hardly a new house being built, but that I can remember. But
lots of elm trees, we were told. The trees almost met over the roads. There were so many elm trees.
yes, that's true. There was a lot of big elm trees in town at that time. I remember at the end of Chute Street there was a big elm, and there was a big elm tree in my father's right in his driveway, and where we lived, a mammoth elm tree. A lot of the trees are gone, of course, the old elm trees are gone.
There was a blacksmith shop on Lunt Street, too, wasn't there?
Yes.
I don't hear very much about it. It wasn't used very much, or was...
No, I can just remember that when that was used. I think when I was a little 5 years old. I'm not sure, but I know it was a blacksmith shop, so it must have been used at one time. And I must remember it being used, but it didn't last long there. And then, of course, the other one was the main one.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally that was turned into a home.
Yes. Yeah.
Arthur Johnson.
Right. Well, times have changed.
Well, I didn't seem to get into many of those tricks, but I know that some of the older persons did. It's just liable to find a baby wagon up on somebody's roof or something like that. Not the horse, of course, but the wagon.
How would you have ever gotten a wagon on top of a roof?
I don't know how they ever done it, but they must have used ladders, and put them against the roof and carried it, pulled it up the ladders.
Oh.
They would do some of the... It wasn't a high building, usually, they got them on. It was some place like the blacksmith shop roof or something like that.
Goodness. Do you remember?
I guess that old blacksmith shop that you're talking about, seems to me, I remember going by and seeing a wagon up on that. And then they'd tip over outhouses and everything like that. I never seemed to get into those gangs that were doing any damage. I was brought up, I guess, not to damage things. So I didn't like to get into anything like that.
What did the youngsters do in Byfield for entertainment, either in the summer or after school? Did you mostly go home and do chores?
Well, we did. We always had our chores to do, and before we went to school, and we got up early, and my father taught us to work. We were, he brought us up. We helped build houses when we were 10 years old, and things like that, and he cut timber. He owned a sawmill over in, it's on the way to Danielsville, the back way. There's a pond over there, My father owned a sawmill there, and one of my mother's sister married one of George Daniels' brothers, I think, Moses Daniels, and they moved to Vermont.
Do you remember the circus that used to come down to this end of town?
Yes, I can remember my father took us to a Buffalo Bill circus. Buffalo Bill was down here on the Plum Island, where the Plum Island Airport is one time. And
The real Buffalo Bill?
Hmm?
The
Real Buffalo
Did you see
Bill.
him?
Yes, I saw
Did
him.
he look like his pictures?
Well, yes, he looked like something like his pictures. I can't remember just what he looked like now, but I can remember him shooting things in the air, you know, he was quite a shot.
And they would be down here for 2 or 3 days?
Yes, usually they were 3 or 4 days, 3 days or something. I can remember circuses getting off the railroad track over here beyond the circle and going down Rolfe Lane here. And we'd sit here and watch them go by. Sometimes they'd be down here and go by all night long, you know, because they opened the next day down here. So they'd be unloading them all night.
Yeah.
Elephants walking by here and everything else.
Do you remember the Littles' drive of horses that they used to do?
Yes. The Littles always, of course, when I was young, real young, why everything, gravel was hauled with horse and dump carts, and everything was done with horses.
Sure.
Roads were built. The first roads were built with dump carts and horses hauled the gravel out of gravel pits.
We have a picture of
Everything
Scotland.
was shoveled on by hand.
We have a picture of Scotland Road when it was just a cart path.
Yeah, it was just so winding. I can remember the old Newburyport Turnpike when it almost looked like that.
Really?
My father would take us on a wagon. We'd go to Topsfield once in a while, and going up some of those hills.
Sure.
We'd
Talking about. It was nothing. We're not recording yet. We're just.
back. It drifted. It used to be an awful highway to plow. There used to be an ice house down there about.
Where?
It's, well, do you know where that little driveway goes in on the left? Now when you get almost to the end of it there was a house in there one time. There was a house in there. It's high ground there for a little ways. Right across from that there was an ice house. Ice pond. There was a pond that flooded there in the wintertime. Wherever the pond came from, I don't know.
Do you remember the ice cutting?
Yes, I can remember them cutting ice. I think they cut ice there mostly by horses, you know, and I guess after the last of it, probably they have these power saws, you know.
This would be coming from Byfield to Newburyport on the left-hand side?
On the right-hand side.
On the right-hand side.
Coming towards Newburyport. It was just till you get, just when you could see the last stretch down to the main corner, you know. It would be just as I say, there used to be a high spot in there, and there was an old home over in there. One time, right on the left-hand side, right opposite this place.
My goodness.
There was an old farm in there, kind of a farmhouse. That's when I was young.
And this was, of course, before Scotland Road was widened and paved.
Yes.
Do you remember why is it called Scotland Road?
I don't know.
It was made, the trip from Byfield to Newburyport, much easier to have that roadway over?
Well, it's much easier to, that was the shortest way to
Yes.
Byfield from Newburyport.
Yes,
Right?
yes.
But it wasn't used much because electric cars went the other way, you know. And
Through
that,
Governor Dummer.
yes. Because they went up, they didn't go up the Newburyport Pike. They went up Middle Street, you know. And,
If you were going to go from Byfield to Newburyport, when it was you used horses, what road would you take?
well, you had gone down Orchard Street, Middle Road.
Uh-huh. Now, if the horses came upon an electric car, wouldn't they be frightened to death? I mean, wouldn't the electric cars frighten the
Yes,
horses?
they did some, but of course, horses got used to them after a while. A young horse young new horse, you know, that you never see him would shy, and they had a hard job sometimes to get him by the cars. But,
Yes. Were they noisy?
electric cars, no, they weren't too noisy.
Uh-huh.
No, they run fairly quiet.
You were,
If they went right by your door, why, they probably did make a noise.
you were telling me about the carnivals that you look forward to.
Well, because there was those, the fire company used to put on these every year, and it lasted about 3 days, and they'd build a dance platform, you know.
You're talking about Byfield now.
Byfield now. These were held right in the schoolhouse yard there,
Yes.
between the hall and the schoolhouse.
You build a dance
Held
hall.
right there, and they built a dance floor and platform, and so they could dance. And
Live music or recorded? Live music?
no, they had live music. They had an orchestra there. Get an orchestra. Probably just at night, you know. They'd use that. There'd be some. And they lit it up. Of course, they'd string lights all around the field and light it up in the booths. We built these booths and all kinds of chances, you know, of chocolates and
Yes.
teddy bears and things like that. Anything to make money. They used to make. That's how they made their money, to buy this truck, the first truck.
How about the food? Would the church put on suppers? Or?
Yes, the church put on suppers, and as I say, the fire company, after we got a building built, they run wish parties once or twice a week and put on little dances there, and that was.
You were told also that there was an ice cream truck that would come by.
Yes, Johnny Canoper used to. Canoper's ice cream truck come up once a week, I think.
What flavors would he sell? What flavors would he sell?
Oh, I guess they had 2 or 3 different kinds of flavors, chocolate and vanilla, and they didn't have all kinds of grape nut and things like that. They just had 2 or 3 kinds. And
How'd he keep it
of
cold?
course, he sold fruit too, you know. He had a kind of fruit and oranges and maybe peaches and seasoned and bananas. And
The ice cream in the summer, he must have been very popular. The first
he
good
was.
humor man.
Everybody ring the bell, we'd say, here comes Johnny's ice cream. And of course, cones were a nickel apiece.
He was the first good humor man.
Mhm.
He was the first good humor man.
That's right. Oh yeah, we always look forward to him.
And that was horse-drawn. How would he keep it cold?
Well, I don't know. To tell you the truth, I don't know just how he did it, but he kept it pretty good. Must have had, of course, they got ice from the ice houses then and chopped it all up and packed it around his barrels, I suppose.
And that was horse-drawn too.
Yeah.
Covered, can you remember what it was like? It was a covered wagon?
Yes, it was a big covered wagon, and I'd say it would be about like the old butcher cart had a round roof, you know, the old.
Homemade shoes?
Maybe they were in their homes, but I don't seem to remember too much about those.
Do you remember any of the big farms in Byfield that are now broken up?
Well, the Yes, there was,
Were the,
right in Byfield itself, there wasn't too many. Of course, there was a Fadland farm,
yes.
and then there was Bert Brown had a farm, and
Where was that?
that was on Middle Road, or Orchard Street, I guess.
Orchard Street,
That-
yes.
That was pretty near down to the end of Orchard Street where it meets Middle Road, you know, where the road goes across there.
Yes.
His farm was right in that driveway opposite that little road that goes between Middle Road and Orchard Street. He had a driveway went up. Then there was a Frank Adams farm just down foot the hill beyond Bud Brown's farm. And then there was a Jimmy Adams big farm. And then there was the Wheelwright farm, I think, was down where you were speaking about the Wheelwright's Corner. There was Wheelwright's farm up on the hill. And across the driveway there was the Upham's farm.
Oh, were they all dairy farms?
Most of them had dairy farm, had dairy cows. And of course then down in Newbury here, these farms were mostly vegetable farms, although they did have some dairy farms here.
Do you remember the apple trees? We were told there were a lot of apple trees in the area.
Yes, the Wheelwright farm had a lot of apple trees on it.
Whatever happened to them?
Well, apple trees, of course, they have a life to them, and they go, you know, they go about so long and they die. And then a real apple farm would be setting out new ones, you know, to keep coming, you know, when the old ones died out. I know I have two beautiful, when I bought this place, there was two beautiful crab apple trees, one on each side of the front door here. And they had them, in the spring they would be just a solid blossoms, you know, solid, they were beautiful. And the apples were big crab apples about that size. My boys used to go out, they sold every one of them, you know. They would be loaded with crab apples. And they had big bushels of them and go out in front and sell them for about 10 cents a, I don't know, peck or something like that.
Did you ever hear about Byfield Snake Days? We heard that Byfield had snakes. There was a Byfield Snake Day when people would go out
I
and
never heard anything about Snake Day. I know there used to be, as kids, I've seen what we call blue runners up above the blacksmith shop. There was a dam there, and then out on the rocks we'd see big snakes curled up there sometimes, great big snakes that big around. And they looked terrible big to us kids, so we were always told that the blue runners would chase you.
Ah.
So we saw one of them as we were young kids going to second or third grade, you know. We'd run all the way home.
After the Yellow School, where did you go to school?
After what?
After Byfield School, after the Yellow School, where did you go to school?
Well, I joined the Navy soon after that. I took a correspondence course at high school in the Navy for a couple of years, and that was it as far as my schooling.
It's interesting that people used to go to Newburyport, and some of them went to Haverhill, to high school.
Yes, my brother Ernest went to Haverhill High School, and I guess my sisters went to Pearly Free in Georgetown. My stepsister and my own sister.
Who were your pals when you were growing up? Who'd you play with?
Who were my pals? Well, there was George Tinker and the Rogers. There was was 2 or 3 Rogers lived in a farm right down back of the old Hush farm, right back of the car barn. There was a farm, the Hush farm, and I know the Rogers family lived there, Carl and Kenneth and Norris Rogers were the boys, and of course they were good friends with us. We played baseball out. We had a field right in the pasture there, right back of the car barn. We used to, that area of the town, we used to play baseball there every night in the summer. And then there was George Tinker and Norman Wells, and that was probably, you've heard of Susie Tinker.
Yeah.
Well, you've heard of Susie, all right. She's
Of
right in your
course.
family.
Yes.
And of course Percy Tinker. And,
Yes. He's my husband's uncle.
and George Tinker was about my age.
Now, Susie had an ice cream parlor, we were told, in the town. What was that like? Was that a center of social activities? I mean, people go there after school?
Oh, yes, that was, it seems to me that was right near the depot there somewhere. I don't know whether the building's still there or not. It's going towards Great Rock, but it would be on the left there. Just after you cross the railroad tracks, there was if you were going down towards Great Rock, that was on the left, and there was...
Was the depot torn down?
It must have been torn down, yes. I don't remember whatever happened to that. On the corner, I guess it's still there. Just after you turn the corner, you know,
Yes.
corner South Byfield. And then the Wheelwright Farm, I think, was up, I don't know, we called that, what do we call it?
That wasn't the farm that we now know as Witchstone Farm, with all of the carvings in the stones.
I don't know. No, that, well, it's Academy Park is up there now.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
all Academy Park. And of course there used to be an old farmhouse, just halfway up before you get to the top of the hill. Right halfway there was a big farm there, and where they built those houses was all the farm. And they raised apples there. That was a
They
big
did.
apple farm.
They did. We
I
were...
remember picking apples there when I was old enough to go down there and picked apples, you know, for, I don't know how much an hour we got, but not much.
How about pears and other fruit?
Well, apples was their main farm. Whether they had a few trees or something else, I don't know. We never picked them. But it was a big apple. There was a lot of orchard farms, and these farms like Adams Farm and all those, they all had orchards and picked apples.
Were any of these people particularly interesting people?
Oh yes, I wished I could remember the characters that there was in Byfield that we used to listen to talk, you know. Because Billy Pearson could imitate a lot of them. The old timers, you know, that we were little kids when they were there. I was probably 5, 6 years old, but I can't remember what they looked like now. But Billy Pearson, we'd get in his store, you know, and he could imitate a lot of those old timers, and there always is a fellow, you know, that can do that, remembers of it, and he would do it. We could listen to him for hours.
I wish I could find somebody who could remember some of the old veterans.
Yeah, I do remember, just barely remember them, but I couldn't tell you what they done or how they looked or anything else. But I do remember of seeing them, you know, in the yards when I was a little kid walking by. And
We were told that there's a tree in Byfield they called the Armory because the Civil War veterans used to sit around there and reminisce.
I don't remember that.
Do you know where Penny Ornery Spring is?
No, I've heard of that, but I don't know where it is. There used to be a spring where you're talking about the cheese factory, there used to be a spring right down there after you went down to that next corner where you went up, where the Academy Park is now, where you turned up that way. There used to be a spring right in that corner there that we used to stop and get water. If we were going by there was a beautiful water spring, we could stop and dip it in.
There was a well or a watering trough at the corner of Central Street and Orchard Street across from where the mill was also.
Yes.
Was that a public watering trough for your horses?
Yes, it was a public watering trough. And I don't know how that was filled either, but it was a watering trough there.
But you don't remember the one on Main Street in front of, below Frankie Witham's? There was also a store there. We have a picture of a building there that was a store.
No, I don't remember that. I do remember there was another spring just beyond Frankie Witham's, where the driveway goes up to that house back there.
Yes.
We used to walk over there a little ways, and there was another spring there. I remember on the way to school, we'd go over there and dip in and get a glass of water.
How far in would you walk?
Well, probably 100 feet or something like that from the road.
Would it be sort of...
It was just as you crossed the lower bridge there, you know.
It would be on the river side of that house?
On the river side of that house, yes.
Hmm.
There was a spring there, and I think it went with that house, of course, but we used to go over there and get a drink of water, I know, if we were on the way to school, if we wanted to.
Then we were told there was also a spring in front of the Yellow School before they had water into the school. Or well?
Yeah. Right just below the church on Church Street, I guess, goes beyond the church. There was and where you go down the Downfall Road, right in that corner, there was a town well there, yes.
And would
now,
you...
whether that was originally a spring, I don't know, but they did put a town well and a pump in there. So that you could go there and pump water.
And you'd get your water there for school.
Well, probably that's where the water came from, for the school, yes. Yes. And that town well.
Has the school always been yellow?
As far as I can remember, yes.
Do you know when it was built?
It seems to me it was a very pale yellow at one time, but...
Do you remember when it was built, or the date of when it was built?
No, it was built just before. It must have been built, because I went to school there, so it must have been fairly new then. That would be, if I said I was probably, I went to the old Turnpike School in Rowley. My first year in school, that was one of those one-room schools with 9 grades in it. 2 or 3 children for each grade.
Yes.
And I can remember the boys, the older boys used to bring frogs and toads and put them in the teacher's desk drawers and things like that. Even little snakes, bring them in and let them go on the floor, you know.
Yes.
Bring them in their pockets. And I went to school there, the first year of school. That poor teacher, I remember how the older boys there used to pester her, you know, doing things like that.
Do you have any idea where the Byfield children went before the Yellow School was built?
No, I can't. That's, no, I couldn't say. I might have heard, but I don't remember.
Do you remember, somebody told me that Dr. Orchid was quite a character.
Yes, Dr. Orchid was our doctor, and I lived in Byfield. Well, my boys were all born at home. I had 4 boys born at home. And Dr. Orchid, I think, came to all of them.
Uh-huh. Somebody's...
He used to come over with, if I called him, he'd come over sometime with horses in the middle of winter, you know, with horses sleigh, and I'd find a place to put his horses in the barn somewhere, and he'd stay till, you know, as long as he was needed there.
What did he look like?
Well, he was quite a stocky man, and full face, real nice fellow, real nice man, but he was quite a large man.
We were told that he would come along with very high-stepping Morgan horses.
Yes. Oh,
And a big, I think, beaver hat or coat.
Fair coat, beaver hat. No, he'd come that way in the wintertime. Of course, he'd come in the summer, but he'd have a carriage, you know, and usually one horse in the summer. He'd come with a little horse, a little carriage.
Do you remember the road rolling?
Road rolling?
For the packing the snow down?
Well, I can remember my father, when they used to drag a log sideways.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't seem to remember much road rolling.
The drag.
I heard they used to do that.
Yes.
Yeah. They had a big log or something that with a part in the middle that rolled and did roll. That was for sledding, of course.
Yes.
But I remember my father had one of the first snow plows that ever plowed the roads. Of course, back before they plowed them, they used to be able to walk on the electric car tracks, you know. They plowed that. They run right along the roads. Central Street, down Main Street, Central Street, right to Governor Dummer Academy. And you could walk or drive in them, but you had to get out when the car come along. So when my father built a big wooden snowplow and done the first plowing of the roads that were plowed.
He was an
inventor. A big snowplow, I can remember, was probably 12, 16 feet long and went to a V, you know, and heavy, made out of heavy oak plank, and 4 horses or something, and had 4 horses to drag it. And he used to plow the roads with that. It could get through quite deep snow. Of course, it wasn't always that deep everywhere, you know. It was foot deep maybe sometimes, but if there was a drift across the road, why, they plowed through it, you know what I mean. And it was too bad. Why, whoever was with the snowplow, there was 2 or 3 men along with it, they'd go ahead and break it through with shovels or something so he could get through.
Mm-hmm. And then he'd be paid so much by the town.
Yeah. And it wasn't too much at that time, you know.
No.
It used to work pretty. Then I think my brother and I were the first one to get, the town bought an old Fordson tractor, and I drove that during a storm. Dick Whitten kept it down in his barn, and we'd go down there and get it started when the storm was coming up, and that had old tracks on it, about that long, clamp, clamp, clamp. You could hear it coming for half a mile, you know. And it'd take us 3 hours to go from Byfield to Dummer Academy, and that's how fast it went.
3 hours.
3 hours down and 3 hours back. So if we went to Governor Dummer Academy and turned around, come back, that's about as far as we went. Or we might have gone to the Newburyport Turnpike, you know, and turned around and come back.
Goodness.
And it was 3 hours. And, that was
in the middle of a cold winter's night, it wasn't very pleasant.
It wasn't very pleasant because you didn't have any heat or anything. We did have a little cab on that, to hold one man. So we took turns. There was 2 of us go. One man would get in and drive for a while, and then the other one to get out and walk behind and swap around. Oh, that was the slowest thing. And we used that for 3 or 4 years, I guess. And then my brother and I bought trucks with plows. We were the first ones to plow the roads with trucks.
Oh, that's interesting.
And we plowed, we brought a V-plow and we'd plow the Scotland Road. And sometimes the drifts there we'd have to go as long as we could. It used to drift in sometimes 10 feet deep there. And where I told you that old ice house used to be, from there to the corner was all open from Newburyport, and the wind blew, away from West Newbury almost down across those fields, and it would pile in there 10 feet deep. We had to take men down there and shovel it out sometime. If they were bound to get the road open, but we'd plow it as long as we could. But when we couldn't get through it, we had to shovel it.
Mm.
We'd shovel a while, they'd shovel through a big drift, and then we'd go and plow for a ways, probably, all right. Then another one we'd have to quit.
Mm.
So I went through that quite a few years. Once in a while, they'd try to hire a big tractor over there from Amesbury or something, or some big contractor had it. He'd come over and try to plow it, but lots of times when it was 10 feet deep, I'm telling you, he'd come over and look at it and punch into it once, back out and go home. He knew he couldn't do anything with it.
Yeah. Those winter storms can really be.
That was our worst road. The rest of the town we used to be able to keep out pretty well, but there was a mile there, a pretty near mile, from Cunningham's house to the Newburyport line that was all open practically, and it drifted in terribly deep.
Hasn't changed much.
And sometimes we'd go down through it at 4 feet deep, that V-plow, and we'd wonder if we were going to get back through again, because when you plowed up some banks on each side, it would just drift full, again, and the wind blowing terribly hard there. Sometimes it drift so we'd worry about getting back through even.
Oh, goodness.
But we did most of the time.
Uh-huh.
By backing up, keep punching through, we'd get through again. Put in some awful nights there trying to keep them roads open.
Yes. Big storms.
But we done that. My brother and I plowed the saw up there for quite a few years. And even after I moved down here, we did plow the Byfield roads for a year or two.
Mm.
Byfield into the town. We had 2 trucks then, 2 or 3.
You were the big road contractor then?
Hmm?
You were the road contractor then?
No, just we didn't have anything to do with the roads in the summertime, but we just, Bert Brown was still a road surveyor, and then I just, what's his name, down at Plum Island there, took it over. Can't think of his name now. But for years we did plow the roads. And Byfield in, and another fellow plowed them down the Seine.
Mm. Do you remember the Byfield of the Plum Island Hotel?
Just barely. I can just remember that, but very, very slightly. I just remember there was a big building there, right where the gas station is now. Somewhere near there. And I don't faintly remember it. I probably was...
When you were going to Plum Island, there were probably very few houses down there.
Well, we didn't get to Plum Island too much. We went to the beach. We seemed to go to Ipswich Beach or something. My father would take us to Ipswich Beach when we lived in Rowley, of course. And so we didn't get to Plum Island. But when we moved down to Byfield, we did get to Plum Island a little bit. And I can remember that you could only go as far as the pavilion then with a car, because there wasn't any road down to electric cars went down there.
Right.
There was no road there. You could get out with a horse and a light wagon, I guess they used to get out through the sand.
Mm-hmm.
That was all.
Do you have any particular happy memories of an event in your childhood?
You say that again, will you?
Do you have any special memories, warm memories of any events in your childhood?
No.
That might have
A
taken...
lot of them, but they're just too numerous to talk about, I guess. Just things that might not...
Did you enjoy Byfield, growing up in Byfield?
Yes, I think I did. I enjoyed Byfield. I did think when I guess I told you about moving out of Byfield, I had to move somewhere else or either buy the place. So I got an idea that if I had boys, and I got an idea if I got them down here, they might get a little more out of school, being close to the high schools, and being closer to the schools, that they might get a little more out of it, and sports and things like that,
Yes,
I guess.
yes.
So I decided to come down this end of the town. Although I don't know if it made any difference. They would have liked to stay in Byfield because they knew all the children there,
Well,
But
I'm sure the fire company misses you, or missed you then.
I did join down here for a little while, and then for some reason or other, the fellows that were in charge of it, I just didn't get along with them too well, so I quit it after a year or two. Both of my sons were in it for years after that. They joined it.
Well, you were very influential in Byfield, in their fire department.
Well, of course I did. I think I was one of the instigators of building the building, and helped build it, because
Yes.
I was a little builder, my father and everything was a builder, so I knew about, and I guess at that time I was doing some building for the snuff company and things like that. I'd done a lot of work for them, and their houses and things like that, Ben Pearson's house and Johnny Litch's house and all. Anything repair work, I'd done a lot. So I can remember I kind of supervised that building and the hose tower and things like that when it was
They
built.
were fortunate to have you. They really were.
And it was all done by the help, free graders. Nobody got anything out of it. I don't think there was any. It was, we built it out of just buying the materials and the help build it, and people come in and help. A lot of townspeople come and help build it.
I don't know where New England would be without its volunteers. Well, I think we've come to...